This standard is central lesson, message, or moral in different types of stories. Students recount stories, including fables and folktales, from diverse cultures and determine their central message, lesson, or moral. Recounting stories requires students to demonstrate an understanding of how story events move from beginning to end and to be able to recount key details. Students who can determine the message of a story are able to identify key details in the story and use those details to help determine the central message. Students who can determine the message of a story use their personal background knowledge as appropriate to help clarify the moral or lesson of the story. This lesson will provide children with a chance to read a text with purpose and understanding by reading for main idea and detail. Students will recount stories, and as they do, will demonstrate an understanding of how story events move from the beginning to the end, determine the message, lesson, moral of the story, identify key details in the story, and lastly, they will use their personal background, knowledge, and experience as appropriate to help clarify the central message, lesson, or moral of the story. Reading fluency has 3 important dimensions that help build a bridge to comprehension. And research shows these are accuracy in word decoding, automatic processing, and prosodic reading. The length of this lesson will be 20 to 25 minutes. It will assume your students know of various types of text features, an understanding of the terms listed here, which range from idiom to antagonist, and a basic understanding or knowledge of different types of reading strategies. The materials needed include writing utensils, the book The True Story of the Three Little Pigs, and the persuasive writing rubric for assessment. Start with introducing and reviewing the following vocabulary. Discuss with the students the importance of background knowledge. Ask the students what they already know about the story of the Three Little Pigs. Next, we'll move into the teacher modeling portion. During this part of the lesson, it requires the teacher to model for guided strategy practice. You can see the script laid out here. It's important to do this to provide the students with a good reading model so they can see you work through the reading strategies yourself. This helps to model story order and showing prior knowledge of the story. Then let the volunteers take turns telling parts of the story. For the active engagement portion, as a teacher, you have modeled the strategy for the students, and we will let the students practice. Read storybook together with your class. Ask students to fold a piece of paper in half. On one side of the paper, they should make a list of what parts of this story are different from the traditional story. On the other side of the paper, they should make a list of what parts of the story are the same. Discuss what the students noted that was the same and what was different about the stories. After the students have shared their answers together, they can then work the information into a Venn diagram or other type of graphic organizer. Also listed here are various extension activities, which includes a letter to a wolf and read all about it, act it out, and more fairy tale fun. Choose any one of these active engagement extension activities to provide your students with more or extended learning. Link before they leave. Remind the student to link what they already know to what they have learned after reading. At the end of the literary text, review who wrote the piece and for what reason, the characters, the main idea and some details, the setting of the story, the time frame of the story, and why. Create a question based on the events in the book. Discuss what role personal prior knowledge, as well as the ability to discern key details, play in a student's ability to identify the central message. Also, discuss how the author uses key details to convey the central message of the text. For the formative assessment piece, which will take around 10 minutes, ask students to write about whether or not they are convinced by the wolf's version of the story. Does he seem trustworthy? Have them explain. This page includes some additional resources that can help you again remediate or extend the lesson depending on the needs of your students after you have looked at their formative assessments. The standard covered in this lesson is RL 2.2, Central Lesson, Message or Moral in Different Types of Stories. Student recounts stories, including fables and folktales, from diverse cultures and determine their central message, lesson, or moral.